Hello everybody, back again with another video. So usually I talk about darker films, so not just specifically horror, but obviously a lot of the pickups videos I do, and then the goriest films, and then um, even the David Cronenberg, Miike Takashi, and John Carpenter rankings have all been sort of more horror or thriller, or at least darker films. So I thought we'd talk about some comedy. So these are my 10 favourite, not really in an order, but number one is probably my favourite. It's a cross between being my favourite and funny, I guess. Um, my favourites are usually funny ones, although I've got some that make me laugh. I mean, say some of the scary movies I do find funny, but they're not well made films, whereas there's one later on which, yeah, doesn't really have me in stitches, but it's a well made film. So, yeah, I'd say these are best comedy films, not the funniest comedy films, although some that I'll talk about when we get to the top. Yeah, try and make this a bit shorter so I won't ramble on. At the end of this, so we'll just ask a question to the audience of how they sort of, what's the word, categorize their films. I'll get onto that. And yeah, so I'll give a shout out to Josh Fulci Fan 101. So last time, I think I said on the video when I gave him a shout out, my brain was like a bit frazzled, so I just called him Josh Fulci, I think. But yeah, he's known on YouTube as Josh Fulci Fan 101. But I have put the link in the title of the last video, so people will be able to check him out. But yeah, I would recommend it. So anyway, on with these. So um, got Will Ferrell with Blades of Glory. So probably I wouldn't say my least favourite, but sort of showed this one first. When I was a kid, I used to go ice skating a lot. I used to really like ice skating, so I sort of like the premise of this. And then there's lots of funny bits in it, but bit when the sort of men have never really done, what do you call it, like pairs of figure skating. So Torvill and Dean, obviously, the way they sort of ramp it up when they first come out on the ice and it's men and he sort of picks him up and stuff. It's just sort of funny the way they display it. And then later on, they try and do a move called the Iron Butterfly, and it's a lot on the ice. But then some of the funny bits are when the villains are like chasing them through like the shopping mall and up the escalators with their ice skates on. But yeah, I guess it's a bit more of an immature kind of film, maybe. I mean, a lot of Will Ferrell's ones are, to be fair, but yeah, it was kind of. I mean, this is an honourable mention. Ghostbusters 1. It's kind of out of ease for the 10th place. I didn't really want to do 11, so those, I guess, are a kind of tie. Ghostbusters is a really good film, but it's not got that many funny bits. It is a comedy, I guess, but I like it more for the sort of supernatural elements. Next, you've got Happy Gilmore with Adam Sandler. I'm not a massive fan of all Adam Sandler. There's a few I was tempted to put in over this. Was The Waterboy. What was it called? Big Daddy's quite funny. Little Nicky, but that's a bit silly. Whereas this, it's kind of silly, but when I first watched it, I was just blown away by, he's never played golf and yet he can hit it like 400 yards and do holes in one. But yeah, it's got a good cast with, as you can see, people like Carl Weathers, rest in peace. Who's actually directed by Roberts? I know. Dennis Dugan. I think I've got other films by him. But yeah, I mean, I don't really play golf much. I played it a bit at the driving range. It was quite fun. But my mate's into this, so sort of always have a laugh. Yeah, it was kind of out of this one and Caddyshack. Caddyshack may be a slightly better written comedy, but this is just so wacky and bizarre and just bits where he's like fighting people on the golf course. Yeah, for me, it's just one that sort of what's the word? Sort of film where, yeah, you could just switch off your brain and sort of enjoy it. Some comedies are really sort of clever and you have to really pay attention to the jokes, whereas that is just sort of a bit more sort of visual humour, I'd say. Then with the sports theme, you've got Dodgeball, Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller. So stupid, but the first time I watched this, I think I seen it when it was showing on television. Didn't actually realise it was Ben Stiller. He plays a really good role in it. But yeah, I mean, again, this is a bit sort of, I guess, showing a bit of my sort of comedy taste. Is sort of slightly more silly comedies. There's a few I've seen that are what you call like clever comedies, or say Peep Show was one of my favourite comedy shows, and that's a bit more what's the word? The like wordplay and the sort of clever puns and stuff is what makes that funny. And the situation rather than it being sort of silly. It's more kind of cringe and sort of serious comedy. But yeah, I like different kinds of comedy, and The Mighty Boosh is one of my favourite shows ever for the sort of surreal comedy with crazy dialogue and weird characters and stuff. But yeah, so it sort of does what it says on the tin. It's a film about dodgeball. These sort of guys are going to lose their gym, so they make a dodgeball team, and the dodgeball scenes are funny, but then there's really funny sort of bits outside of that. And then what's the guy called? Uh, Rip Torn. It's really good in it. Yeah, loads of quotables and stuff in it. And, yeah, I find that one real fun. Sort of again like what I call like easy viewing kind of thing. You don't have to think too much to sort of get the jokes. And then this is my favourite Jim Carrey film. It's out of this and Dumb and Dumber. I do really like Cable Guy, but I wouldn't say it's that funny. Me movies, so I'm not giving away what the next ones are. A bit of a spoiler there. Yeah, so watched this as a kid, probably about 9 years old, around like a sleepover for my mate's birthday, and we all found it real funny. Watched it again recently, thinking it might have aged or it might be silly, but it still tickled me quite a few parts. Some really good quotables. Jim Carrey, other than the mask, this is the most kind of cartoony and silly faces, and but yeah, he actually does deliver like good wordplay. Bit that makes me laugh the most is probably when this horrible um, police guy looks a bit like Joey Diaz. I don't think it is, but he steps on a cockroach. So then Ace Ventura slams him down face to face with a cockroach, and then he's like, "The reason you stood on this cockroach is because you got insanely jealous when you seen the size of his penis or something." But yeah, it's actually got some like witty word play. It's not just about silly faces and him shouting quotables, although there are some really good quotables. But yeah, good acting and some good action. A bit when he's rescuing a dog, and then the guy jumps on the back of the car, and dog bites his hand, and then Ace turns around and bites his hand. Some like good soundtrack. It's a bit in it that guess if it showed on TV or it was released nowadays, might be cut out. Where basically it's not a spoiler. I'm sure everyone's seen this, but he kisses what he thinks a woman, then he finds out it's a man sort of posing as a woman, and then he's like being sick and washing his tongue in the shower, and it's pretty kind of transphobic. So I guess that probably wouldn't fly today, but I think it's done in more of like a joke way than an offensive way, really. But yeah, it's a good sort of backstory with what's his name, Dan Marino, I think was a real NFL player. They go to his sort of finding there's basically someone's kidnapped the Miami Dolphins mascot, which is a dolphin, and Ace is trying to get it back. But yeah, I sort of for me peak kind of Jim Carrey. This is my favourite of the Cornetto trilogy. I do prefer this to Shaun of the Dead, although a lot of people really seem to love Shaun of the Dead. But yeah, Hot Fuzz. So not only is it funny, but it's a really well made film. And then it's Paddy. It's obviously directed by Edgar Wright, but one of the cops in it. I can see if I can see it here. I think it's Paddy Considine. Can't see his name there, but basically when he's giving a speech and the guy shouts out like "prick" or something in like a Somerset accent, pretty sure that's either Paddy Considine or that's a guy that's in Dead Man's Shoes. Yeah, I'm sure everybody's seen Hot Fuzz. It's filmed not far from me in Wells, like not the country Wales, but Wells, and I think it's filmed a bit in like Somerset, in like the Summerfield that used to be there or something. This woman I used to work with sort of went and seen it when it was filming on the set and that. But yeah, this is my favourite of those films. Yeah, loads of quotables, some quite good gore actually. To be fair, when the it's not really a spoiler, but the church spire falls straight on someone's head, and then there's some really inventive killings in like the flower shop, and yeah, it's sort of not silly. I mean, and World's End is it called? The one after this kind of gets a bit silly for me. But yeah, it's obviously what's the word? Yeah, I guess it's a comedy horror fantasy. It's not as horror based as Shaun of the Dead, but yeah, it's my favourite out of those. And sure, if people have seen this, they'll understand why. But yeah, again, one of the best is in best filmmaking. I really enjoy it, but I wouldn't say it's got me sort of in stitches crying. This one I spoke about a lot by Joe Dante, The Burbs. So not only is this one of my favourites and sort of an introduction to like kind of comedy horror when I was a kid, I really like the atmosphere and the acting and the Klopex, but yeah, when I was a kid I didn't really find it that funny, but I've watched it lots of times. When I watched it recently, it must have been a few months ago, a lot of the jokes, whether you miss some where you're sort of wrapped up in the film or you're laughing at other ones, a lot of them sort of hit more. And then let me see if I can quickly find his name. guy that played. Oh man, I think it must be Rick Dockamoon. Dockerman. I don't know how you say that. Obviously it's not Tom Hanks' character. It's not Bruce Dern. Yeah, he basically plays his mate. He's sort of eating everything and that. But yeah, he's got some really funny lines in that. And yeah, I do actually find this one funny. And then this one I hadn't seen in quite a long time. I used to watch this as a kid. I think my mate either had it on VHS or well, my cousin actually, or we watched it on TV. But obviously, we was into Bottom and the Young Ones and stuff like that. And then Bottom did some like live shows, like what was it called, like Hooligans Island or something. And this was like a bit of a carry on from this, but yeah, I think I spoke about this on my. Well, I know I spoke about this on my pickup. So got some quite good actors in it. So Fenella Fielding's like an older, quite famous actress. Simon Pegg, Bill Nighy, kind of British actors. Obviously Simon Pegg from Hot Fuzz. Helene Mahue, really beautiful. Plays an Italian. Is she Italian? Italian or French in it? Vincent Cassel, sure everybody knows him. He's really good in it. Directed by Adrian Edmondson, which I was quite surprised at, but well directed. But yeah, this is quite sort of crude, some kind of sexual humour and a lot of swear words and slapstick violence. And like I've said before, I ain't a massive fan of slapstick violence usually. I don't even really like Mr. Bean that much, but it does work with these two. And then loads of funny bits, really good effects at the end when it's in a spoiler, but everyone's basically being sick, and Vincent Cassel sticks up this huge like ball of vomit. It's rolling down the hallway like Indiana Jones chasing them, and then his cheeks are all stretched and stuff. So yeah, it does have some like good practical effects. But yeah, I was quite surprised when I rewatched this like 3 nights ago how funny it actually was, because when you're a kid, not only does your sense of humour change over the years and kind of matures, but also there was jokes in that I didn't get. I don't think. Yeah, pleasantly surprised when I watched this again. What a fun sort of film it is. But yeah, quite crude and offensive, I guess. This one, yeah, I'd say is a bit more of a clever. So it's not really as silly as say Dodgeball and things like that, which are going for like what's the word, the absurdity of the situation to make you laugh. Whereas this is a bit more clever and well written. I'm pretty sure Kevin Kline won Best Supporting Actor in this. He is really funny in it. Otto, he's called. Michael Palin is like a stuttering guy that basically has to tell him what's happened, and he's stuttering and they can't get out of him. It's like quite a tense scene, and then he's kind of hired as a hitman where there's this old lady that's like seen a crime, so he has to like take her out, like snipe her or drop something on her, and he keeps messing it up. Obviously, everyone knows Jamie Lee Curtis. John Cleese really funny in this. I'd say the funniest thing I've seen him in, other than Faulty Towers. Probably better in this actually than Faulty Towers. But yeah, really well made, clever, well written. Yeah, I'd say this is used to be my favourite comedy film at one point before I'd seen the next two that you're going to see. Yeah, I recommend this to my mate, and he watched it with his mum and sister, and it's now all their favourite comedy film. But yeah, really clever, sort of bit more, I'd say sensible. Comedies are a bit sort of outlandish and silly, aren't they? But it's a bit more grounded, I would say. And then this, for terms of funniness, would have been number one, but not for best overall movie. I mean, it was quite close to being in my top 15 movies of all time when I did that list, because I've watched it lots of times. It doesn't get boring. There's always jokes I'd sort of never. I think it's where you sort of laughing from the last joke that you miss some. Whereas yeah, the other films will sort of make me laugh a bit. Just ha. Whereas this had me once full on sort of crying with laughter. My belly was hurting and I couldn't breathe, kind of stuff. Think I'd had a few drinks and watched it with my mate or something, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't never a massive fan of Will Ferrell before I seen this, and when I seen the trailer, I thought it looked really silly, and then I gave it a chance, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. But yeah, so many quotables. Uh, the supporting cast are really good. So it's got the guy out of Parks and Recreation. Don't know if I can see his name on there. Jenkins, Adam Scott, I'm guessing it is. He's funny in Parks and Recreation, but yeah, good bit in that when he sort of pulls up his shirt and he's got a six-pack and he says, I haven't eaten a carb in like 15 years or something. I think a lot of this, from watching the extras, is ad-libbed. So they've got a script, but then Will Ferrell especially, but also John C. Reilly, the other characters, all just freestyle something off the top of their head, and then all the cast are trying to keep a straight face. This is the extended edition. I can't remember what the difference was to the old version I had on DVD, but it seemed the kind of sex scene that happens. It goes on a bit longer, and I think there's maybe a few more. But yeah, the Boats and Hose music video standout bit when he sort of touches his drum kit. Um, the bit it's not only funny but it's quite uplifting. So it's a spoiler, but near the end they basically sing and play the drums. He plays an amazing drum solo, and his singing is amazing. And you kind of think they're going to be crap, and then they kind of save a day. And yeah, it's genuinely like breathtaking. Kind of, I'm pretty sure they actually really do sing and play it. I've heard Will Ferrell can sing. But yeah, the what do you call it, the Catalina wine mixer. But yeah, I think Ash from Popcorn Horror said that he finds this one funny. A lot of my mates really love this one. Kind of film you can watch it every year and not get bored of it. And my number one, I've spoke about this before. I'm sure everybody knows this. Is With Now and I, and not as funny as Step Brothers. Maybe not even as funny as Fish Called Wanda. Guest House Paradiso. It's more clever and it's more about the quotables. But yeah, I like the story, the music. It's got a kind of somber atmosphere. It's kind of quite bittersweet. Without giving it a spoiler, they're kind of struggling actors and they're suffering, and then near the end, one of them kind of makes it and leaves the other one. I won't say who. Really good performances. Literally hundreds of quotables that have been sampled in music and like UK hip hop songs I used to listen to. Kind of real, like a real student. I think it's like late 70s. Let's see if I can find a. 1986, but I think it's set at the sort of end of 60s. It's got Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix, my favourite song by him. Yeah, it's just really well made. Is it directed? Bruce Robinson. So I've got a few films by him, but I think that's his best film. But yeah, as an overall film, I think that's one of the best British films I've seen. Yeah, it's not hilarious comedy, but there are funny moments. But yeah, for me, it's more about the actual overall film. Really, I'd say it's a deeper kind of more introspective film than Step Brothers is. Step Brothers, I wouldn't say it's a throwaway film. It's just a bit more fun. Not as much depth to it as there is in With No One Eye. It's a bit more of a commentary on like the way England was at that time, at the end of like Thatcher's England, I think it was. Yeah, so I rambled on. So the only thing I will quickly say is with my collection, I don't have them in alphabetical order. Been thinking of doing it recently, but to people that have it in alphabetical order, it's easier to find your films and to file them once you've got them. But the thing I'm wondering is, what do you do with like films that? So, for instance, I've got like John Carpenter films next to each other, Cronenberg films next to each other, so I wouldn't really want to split them up. So obviously, say what's it called? Shivers would be sort of nowhere near. Um, Crimes of the Future, whereas I like to have those together. But I guess those ain't too bad. But it's obviously I wouldn't want to mix, say, the Arrow and the Second Sight in with normal releases. I keep them separate, which you could do and put them in alphabetical order. But I find there's some sequels and films that go together that wouldn't be next to each other. So that like seems weird to me. Let me try. I can't think of an example at the moment. Well, yeah, I guess say Split. It's part of the series of Unbreakable and what was it called? When I hadn't seen the newest one. After and they wouldn't be next to each other, or I think the like Cloverfield ones. Yeah, I can't think of examples at the moment. But there are obviously say Evil Dead 1, 2, and 3 sort of be next to each other, whereas there are some that I'd like to put together that wouldn't be, and then same with the Titan Age Extreme. It'd be weird to sort of not have the Miike Takashi ones next to each other. So yeah, people that do have it in alphabetical order, and I've obviously watched it looks like Ash from Popcorn at Horror and Stuart George and Roy Barrett and that do seem to have it in alphabetical order. Yeah, what do you do when it comes to you split up your director into different bits, or would you not have Old Boy next to Lady Vengeance and Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, even though they're say from the same trilogy? And yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm thinking of sort of rearranging it onto alphabetical order, but the sort of what's the word, anal kind of OCD side of me, I don't know if I could get over not having like Silence of the Lambs next to Red Dragon and Hannibal if they were alphabetical. But yeah, if anyone wants to comment down below, let me know how you sort of rearrange yours and if you bypass the films not being grouped together or whether it doesn't bother you. And yeah, it just seems a bit sort of weird, I guess, because I've had them like that for so long. Mine aren't really in any order, so it's quite hard to find them, and I guess they look a bit messy, but I usually just put them in order of how recently I bought them. So, I'll have all the new sort of horror films together and then the new action together, and then I'll do them by directors. And obviously, I've got my arrow separate. But yeah, anyway, rambled on long enough when I said I wouldn't, but 20 minutes isn't too bad on my standards. So the last one was like 30. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. Bye.